The Dallas Cowboys could have as many as 6 new starters on defense in the second half of the season. We'll tell you who they might be next.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Welcome back. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. He is Landon McCool, and we've got a full show for you guys today. But we have to start with the tragic news out of Dallas. The Cowboys have announced that Marshawn Kneeland, their second-round pick from the 2024 NFL Draft, passed away early on Thursday morning. You and I both woke up to the news. It was absolutely horrific. The details are pretty grim here, Landon. I don't even know what to say at this point. It's just an awful time for the Cowboys, for fans around the football league. It's tough.
It's always hard that it takes like something like this to kind of remind folks that these are human beings. Like he's a 24-year-old kid from Grand Rapids who likes anime and maybe like your nephew or your neighbor's friend, or he was. I just remember seeing him around training camp, and he always had a smile on his face, which again, like whenever we're talking about what we're talking about, just makes this all the more tragic. It sounds like there's reports that there may have been some mental health stuff here happening. Like, we don't know for sure. And if there's not, I apologize, but I think it's as good a time as any to kind of remind folks that there's people out there that care for you, and that if you're struggling, a lot of us struggle with depression, and that there's always someone who's willing to listen to you if you want to reach out. And I know I will if you reach out to me, and I'm sure Marcus feels the same way.
DMs are open all the time. Please come in and chat. We'd love to chat with you guys.
But I just, back to Marshawn, like, he just seemed like a guy that was so full of life and obviously just so young. That's what makes this just so terrible.
Marshawn Kneeland, gone at age 24. All right, Landon, let's I know it's hard to talk about football stuff after what we had to go through on Thursday and what the Cowboys are going to have to continue to deal with over the rest of the season. But we do need to talk about the Cowboys defense. There are a lot of newcomers on this unit, including some veterans that have been acquired via trade, a couple guys coming back from injury. Let's start on the defensive line. Who are 2 new guys on that unit that you think could have a big impact in the second half of the year?
Well, obviously we start with Quinnem Williams. I mean, the acquisition that we just traded for. I think having this many defensive tackles that you like, I mean, you still got Kenny Clark, Osa Odigizua. I think that obviously the natural inclination is to think that it's just going to be a heavy rotation. But I actually went back and watched the Cardinals game, and the amount of 3 tackle and whether you want to say 3 tackle or just 5 defensive line looks that they played in was a shocking increase. And I actually went to go look it up versus the previous 8 weeks, and they used it almost double their normal rate. I think it was like something like 13 plays out of, 62 that they played. So I do think that there's an opportunity for guys like Quinnem Williams and Clark and Osa Odigizua to all play together. And then us, and also Solomon Thomas as well. And then the other guy that I think we should mention, Perrion Winfrey, who is, a guy that was kind of an afterthought when the signing happened. It was just another one of these CFL guys. He obviously had performed well. The Cowboys took a look-see. We all remember him coming out of Oklahoma. We all remember, kind of the situation in his NFL career. It was a little bit lackluster. But in training camp, he really, really looked good. He continually flashed, and we talked about him consistently throughout training camp. And look, we've seen that before, that doesn't always necessarily translate to regular season success. But I do think that, this is a guy with some pedigree. This is a guy that, it really was, I think, about maturity his first go around in the NFL. And he feels like he's more focused, more locked in. He's a big guy. They played him inside at 1. They played him at 3. He has some versatility. And I'm excited just to see how they kind of mix him in with the rest of these guys.
It's crazy they have like legit defensive tackle depth the first time in our lifetimes. I mean, it's like since the early 90s, right? Like I'm excited to see Perrion Winfrey, but there might not be that many snaps available. Now they did move on from Mozzie Smith, but Smith was a healthy scratch in week 9 when the Cowboys played the Cardinals. It was Jay Toia who was getting those snaps, and maybe he just is the guy that's inactive now, but he's really the only true nose tackle you have on this roster. But I do wonder if Matt Eberflus, as you mentioned, starts to use these guys in more creative ways. And one of the things we've seen in previous weeks is like Solomon Thomas or Kenny Clark lined up as a defensive end on some early downs to give some more, size in the edge. I do think there's some creative ways to use all of these players, and I'm really excited to see how they do it.
Yeah, if you play more 5-man surfaces, you don't need a nose tackle that's 330 pounds because you're not having to take on double teams. Part of why you have a 5-man surface is to ensure that everybody gets one-on-one blocking, right? So, I think, if you're planning on kind of just changing the way that you're aligning your fronts a little bit, you may not need Toia as much, and that means you might have more snaps available for Perrion Winfrey.
We should mention with Winfrey, because I think people maybe forgot, he was really good in the preseason, and the Cowboys were like thrilled to give him one of these 53-man roster spots. Like they brought him in, and Brian Schottenheimer kind of joked around like, hey, you're going to get cut. And, he made the roster. It didn't sound like he was one of the bottom guys to make the roster either. And then he injures his back right before week 1 starts. He's put on the injured reserve list. And this is really the first time that he's going to be healthy enough to play. What's the role going to be? I don't know, but this is a guy that the Cowboys are extremely high on, and I'm curious to see how they use him.
Yeah, I think that whole last paragraph that you just said out loud is going to apply to a couple of the guys that we have here, right? That are coming off of injury lists. We're not exactly sure what their role is going to be. We're interested to see how they come off and how they've healed. Perrion Winfrey is obviously a top of that list. Maybe not the top, just because you have so much depth, like you said, but an interesting add, I would say, at the very least, to a group that has changed dramatically in the last 6 months.
Yeah, I want to add Donovan Ezeraku. Now, he got his first NFL start against Arizona, so he technically probably shouldn't be on this list, but he is somebody who over the last 5 or 6 games has really started to come on, and with Fowler and Jadeveon Clowney actually giving you some pretty good production, if Ezeraku can keep this up and continue to develop, you might be okay on the defensive line.
Yeah, this podcast is about injecting new talent, new faces in the second half that are changing the angles a little bit. But you almost could include Ezeraku in it because he's playing so differently than he was at the beginning of the season. In the last few weeks, he has played outstanding football, and it really felt like last week was his breakout week. And so I'm interested to see what is the expectation? What can we expect from him in the back half of the season as he started to internalize what he went through the first part of the season?
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about the new linebackers, because the Cowboys went into week 9 with Kenneth Murray and Shamar James as their starting linebackers. Going into week 11, there could be 2 new starters, including one they just traded for. We'll get to that next. This episode is brought to you by Mint Mobile. If you're still overpaying for wireless, it's time to start saying yes to saying no. At Mint Mobile, their favorite word is no. No contracts, no monthly bills, no overages, and no hidden fees. I said yes to making the switch, and now I'm getting premium wireless for just $15 a month. Mint makes it simple. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text, delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can even bring your own phone and keep your same number in contacts. I love that you're getting the exact same quality of some of the other brands, but you're getting it at a fraction of the price. So are you ready to say yes to saying no? Make the switch at mintmobile.com/LockedOnNFL. That is mintmobile.com/LockedOnNFL. Upfront payment of $45 required. limited time new customer offer for first 3 months only. Speeds may slow down above 35 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. The NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium, surrounded by fans, cheering on your favorite team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle between queues, login screens, and prices jumping at checkout. It's all incredibly frustrating, but that's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price that you see is the price that you pay. The app is so simple to use. You can see your exact view from your seats before you buy. It's faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way that you've purchased tickets in the past. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that is promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, and go download Game Time today. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We're talking about 6 players who could be starters or have big roles for the Cowboys on defense in the second half of the season. Let's talk about linebacker. I want to start with Logan Wilson, Landon, because the Cowboys went out and traded for him at the deadline. I know it's a 7th-round pick, but they're paying him a decent amount of money. They have 14 days to get him ready for this game against the Raiders. What are your expectations here?
Yeah, I'm looking for just a better floor than what we've experienced so far with the linebackers they've had so far. You know, I just think that the Murray situation has just been a nightmare. And I felt like they needed to move somebody just to get a little bit less, a little bit more consistency, right? I mean, I'm not asking for a guy to come in here and make every single play. I just think that I just want a guy that's not, you know, coming in here with the same sort of flaw in his game that has always been there, right? Like I think what we saw with Murray is that he has a very defined set of flaws that are easy to exploit by offenses, right? I think with Logan Wilson, like you get a guy that is not the same athlete that he was obviously like 3 or 4 years ago. He's getting a little bit older, but you still know that his eyes are going to be disciplined. He's going to get to the right spot. It just may be eventually, but he's not going to be fooled. And I feel like, I know it may just be kind of potentially failing in a different way, but I'm just so sick of seeing the same kind of thing with Murray that I think with Wilson, you at least have a shot to get there, and if he can't make the tackle or if he can't quite get there, that's fine. But I'm just tired of Sean McVay and all these guys that use misdirection, causing our linebackers to run 3 yards the wrong way before they finally realize what's happening to them.
Speaking of Kenneth Murray, do you think there's a chance that he's a healthy scratch coming out of the bye? Because if you look at the linebackers, right, we're going to get to Overshown in a second. So Overshown, Logan Wilson, Shamar James, and Maris Leafau are both 2 guys that play a bunch on special teams. Now, Jack Sanborn's out, and maybe that complicates things, but maybe. I kind of feel like Murray's at this, like he's the 5th linebacker, and the 5th linebacker kind of needs to play a lot of special team snaps.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the question is like how many snaps would he plan on playing if he's active, right? Like, is he the 3rd linebacker on the field? Is he the 5th linebacker?
He's the greened out linebacker. Do they take that role away from him? Do they kind of ease these 2 new guys in and he's playing?
I have to imagine Logan Wilson or Overshown takes that role in the next 2 weeks, right? Like I just can't.
I have a hard time seeing Overshown doing it, considering he's coming off a major injury, right? Like they're going to want to limit his snaps.
That's fair. So maybe, but yeah, I think usually they have 2 guys that are doing it because of injury, right? So maybe it's Logan Wilson and then Leofau or Jack Sanborn, depending on where he is, because
Sanborn's on IR, so it'd have to be
he's out for
Shamar
this. Yeah, so yeah, it had to be hit like Shamar. Well, I mean, yeah, I don't know. Like, do you want to put a rookie in this role? I mean, that's the question. Either
that's
way,
why I think Murray has a chance to still play even with the new additions, which
maybe I think it's certainly possible. I think there's a point where it's like, if you're not playing special teams though, and you're not like the third or fourth linebacker off the bench, which I don't know, maybe he will be, but if you still plan on giving Leofau and Shamar James a lot of snaps, I could see him maybe not every week, but some weeks being healthy and active, just because it doesn't necessarily behoove you to like have him out there if he's only going to play 10 snaps and no special teams.
I'm excited to see Logan Wilson because it's just different. It's honestly something different.
Exactly.
Watching the tape of the Monday night game. I mean, first of all, you got these linebackers that are dropping to like 12, 13 yards past the line of scrimmage, coming up, and they're not aggressive making tackles at all. And then they miss tackles, and it's really poor linebacker play. And I don't know if it's because like James is a rookie, Kenneth Murray is not very good. Sanborn was the guy that was supposed to be kind of your leader, but he's been out. I just want something different. And at least with Logan Wilson, he might not be good anymore, but at least he was good at some point in his NFL career. I can't say that about anybody else in this roster.
It's awareness. It's just like having football awareness. And that's what's frustrating with Murray, is that he's a very good athlete. You see that thoroughly, but it's just so frustrating to watch it, him drop into his own coverage and have like a guy run right through his zone and him not even react to it. It's like, that's not going to happen with Logan Wilson. He'll react. He may not react in time, but I can live with that. At least he's reacting. And I think that I'll take my chances with what's left of Logan Wilson's athleticism and his processor versus whatever athleticism Murray has and his complete lack of processor.
All right, let's talk about DeMarvion Overshown, because it was about, what was it, December that he tore his knee. And honestly, he was playing the best football I think I've ever seen him play. I mean, he was like a legitimate all-pro candidate. I remember that game on Thanksgiving. He had the interception. He was flying all around. He's only 11 months removed from the injury. And again, it was a pretty massive injury. What should our realistic expectations be for Overshown this year?
What I remember of Overshown real quick is him outrunning Micah Parsons to the corner one time on a pitch, and it was like the most amazing thing you'll ever see. It was like, I didn't even know that was possible. I mean, I think we've talked about this, and our fears here and our concerns here, and he doesn't share these same concerns. He's chomping at the bit. I think it's probably realistic to expect 15 snaps early, 10, 15 snaps early, especially now that you've made a trade and hopefully you're getting a guy that you feel a little bit more comfortable. Maybe it provides a little bit more stability. Then at least you feel like you can cobble his early role together with Shamar James and then just start, decreasing James's snaps and increasing Overshown snaps as you start to feel more comfortable. And maybe you throw him out there and he's flying around and you just feel like you need him, and then they just keep him in there. There certainly is that possibility, but I think I'm hoping that they at least kind of ease him, and they've been pretty good traditionally about doing that. I'm hoping that this trade gives them what that they need to feel confident enough to be able to slow roll him out, as opposed to just tossing him to the Wolves and having him play 60 snaps the first week he's back out there.
It's just not smart to do that. You need to protect him. You need to protect your defense. The other part of this that's really hard for Overshown is the part of the schedule that he's entering, right? Like, they're coming off a bye week. That's great. But listen to this. They play Monday night at the Raiders, right? And then they play 6 days later home against Philadelphia. And then they play 4 days later against the Chiefs on Thanksgiving. And then rather than getting a 10-day break like most teams do after playing a Thursday game, you've got another Thursday game 7 days later. So that's like, that's 4 games in, my math is bad, 16 days, 17 days like that. It's why I wouldn't be opposed if the Cowboys decided to give him one more week and save him for the Philadelphia game. I would not hate that at all, because they got to protect him.
Yeah, maybe they do something where he doesn't play one of these games, or like he plays a full load one of these games
against the Raiders, and then you save him for the Chiefs, and that way he has
a full recovery time or
10
something.
days to get ready for that game.
Maybe, like, I don't know. It's like, I mean, but yeah, I think you've got, but see, the thing is, you've got, like we said in the last segment, you've got a couple of these guys who kind of fall in this range. We'll talk about one next segment, but it's going to be interesting to see. And each one of them are on their own timeline, so it's going to be interesting to see exactly how they deploy these guys.
It's almost, they almost need to follow like the NBA method of like load management with
Load
Overshown.
management. Yeah.
And again, it's probably going to hurt your defense not having him out there. And I know that he's going to be chomping at the bit to be out there. But what we want to see from Overshown, like the number one thing is get through the 2025 season healthy, show that he can trust his knee, that he can still make plays and diagnose, and have a full, healthy 2026 offseason and get you ready for the year that we think is going to be the Cowboys' kind of window to really go for it.
Absolutely. And I think, we want him out there to get healthy and to get some more experience and play. But ultimately, we know what the season is. And we certainly don't want to risk any time in 2026 with him getting an injury in 2025.
All right, let's talk about a defensive back who also will be making his debut here in Week 11. We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement of this sports season, whether you're following the NFL, the NBA, or both. There's never been a better time to jump in on the action. And if you haven't tried yet, Prize Picks is the simplest way to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats, and if you get them right, you win. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup, and you can play anywhere that Prize Picks operates, including, get this, California, Texas, and Georgia. I love how easy it is to put together lineups. Plus, if one of your players leaves early with an injury, the injury reboot saves your lineup from a loss. Nobody else is doing that. So download the Prize Picks app today. Use promo code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That is promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen every day. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL podcast. 2 shows every single day, one in the morning with Tyler Rowland, one in the afternoon with Tony Wiggins, available wherever you get your podcasts. All right, Landon, we've waited a long time to see this player. No training camp, no preseason, missed the first half of the season. Shavon Revel looks like he's going to be ready to play in Week 11, and boy, do they need him.
Man, the most precarious of these situations, right? The guy that's obviously been in an ACL recovery, comes from a small school, doesn't have a ton of experience, so and obviously has no NFL experience, and he's going to be thrown out here in Week 11, right? And it's a tough situation, and it's tough because unlike some of these other positions, a little bit, the need here is maybe a little bit stronger, maybe even more so than Overshown in some ways, right? Where you really kind of need Revel to come out here and at least contribute somehow. Maybe not be the starter right away, though. We'll see, right? Like, so I kind of think because he's a rookie, hopefully they'll be smart. They need him to play though. So I'm hoping that he doesn't necessarily get the start right away, but they work him into maybe, nickel situations or dime situations as an outside guy. I just think that they need to kind of limit his snaps just to give him kind of early exposure to the speed of the game, for goodness sakes. And look, maybe the Raiders are a good team for him to be facing in his first game. They don't necessarily have the kind of super top end receiving talent that like you're worried about. So I do think that, he's getting brought in at a good time. I just, I worry about overexposure because of, the injury, obviously, just like we talked about with Overshown, but also because he's a rookie and because he's a cornerback, and it's a spot that can play with your head a little bit. And if he goes out there and gets burned a couple times, you don't want him spiraling. You need him to get out there and get solid experience. And if you force the issue, you may put him in a bad situation.
The good news is that it feels like the Cowboys have at least settled on their cornerbacks right now with Bland and Elam on the outside, with Reddy Stewart playing in the slot. And maybe if you can kind of slow roll Revel in to like some obvious passing situations, you can move Bland in the slot. But I don't think he's going to be somebody that is going to be a starter in his first game. Like, I would not be surprised if they get him on some special teams units. He plays 4 or 5 snaps. We should also mention Caelen Carson, who started to play a little bit more last week. He's also going to be factoring into this equation as well.
Yeah, and he was, he's our final guy here, and he kind of, is a little bit of a cheat since he played his first game last week against Arizona, but he got in there. He played, I think, 20 plus snaps. I mean, it was pretty significant for his first time back in, a year plus.
Didn't look awful.
And he looked decent. I mean, he certainly looked better in man a little bit than he did in zone, but was physical, was certainly mixing it up, and has always been a guy that was never afraid to kind of stick his nose in there. So you're not worried about him in the run game either. So yeah, I think that, it's crazy to me that the Cowboys come back from this bye and, maybe not turning over half their defensive starters, but adding 6 names to their list of available players that are going to rotate in. Yeah. It should have a noticeable impact on their performance.
Yeah, and again, maybe Carson isn't somebody that starts, but maybe he's pushing Elam for that other outside cornerback job, and maybe he plays so well, or Revel plays so well, that they feel pretty good about being able to slide Bland back down to the slot. It gives you options, and there's another name that we should mention, Josh Butler, who is also returning from a torn ACL. It seems like he's a little bit further behind some of these guys. Maybe
he got injured later, right? I think
he did get injured later.
So
he might not be ready for Thanksgiving, but he's coming down the pipe as well.
Yeah, I think if I'm not mistaken, I think his timeline puts him a little bit closer to December. So yeah, another guy with experience that can offer you depth and at least options, right? Because I think with these cornerbacks we're finding, it's everyone was ready to cut Bland, and they can't believe Bland had such a terrible game, and why did they re-sign Bland, and forgot that last week Bland had an incredible game and was all the way. And I think these corners just run hot and cold, whether it's season by season or game by game. So it's good to have depth so you can have options in case you catch one on a bad week.
He is Landon McCool. I'm at Marcus_Mosher. Enjoy the bye week. We'll see you guys right back here on Monday and get you ready for their game against the Las Vegas Raiders.